A down year for the SEC in 2024. I think most people would say that was the case. Of course, Texas still in the college football playoff, but they are the only SEC team remaining. We're going to go through each conference, each of the four Power Four conferences, and look back at preseason predictions, see how accurate we were, where we got it right, where we got it wrong, and of course, we want to hear from all of you. Which teams surprised you? Which teams did you totally miss on? Which teams did you hit right on the money? Let me know how your predictions went, and of course you can give your feedback to our predictions as well. So we're going to look at a few different things here as we start with the SEC. We're going to look at, first of all, the record for each team, and again we're just looking at the regular season record because that's what the predictions are based off of. We're going to look at our projected record from the formula that we have that we do, before spring football. We're going to look at my predictions. Also, how the simulations went, because this was very interesting. We're going to look at how the simulations went on the old game with our rosters, the rosters that we created, and then we'll also look at how the simulations went on the new college football game. So yeah, we'll look at all of that here in this video. And again, just kind of recapping the season this week and next week as we have these final playoff games, and then we will quickly jump into a very early preview of 2025. So you see, again, these are the records, the overall records. Texas going 11-1. They were able to beat Vegas. Vegas had their over-under at 10.5. Georgia's over-under was at 10.5. They did not beat that, went 10-2. Tennessee going 10-2 as well. Their over-under was at 9.5, so they beat that. Alabama 9-3. Their over-under was 9.5, so they were under. We had South Carolina at 9-3. They were the big surprise. Their over-under was at 5.5, so they were like it was 5-7 or 6-6 for this team. They definitely overperformed that. Then Ole Miss, they were 9-3, which is about where they were expected. Their over-under was at 9.5, so some teams were over, some under. All of them though were very close. In terms of these first few teams, except for South Carolina. South Carolina was the big surprise team based off of, again, the expectations. So now let's get to our projected record formula, which we're going to be doing again as soon as the national championship is over. Probably within that next week or so, we will start our projected record series for next season. I'm going to do it a little bit different this year. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But Texas, their projection was at 10-2. They were able to beat that by a game. Georgia, 9-3, Tennessee 9-3, Alabama was exactly right at 9-3. South Carolina projected at 6-6. Again, they were a surprise team for sure. Ole Miss projected at 9-3. So all of our projected records, except for South Carolina here in these first teams, all of the projections were within one game. So pretty accurate projections, and very easily could have seen Tennessee or Georgia go 9-3 or Texas go 10-3. But yeah, I would say those projections are pretty accurate. Now I'll go to my predictions. I had Texas right on the money at 11-1. Georgia had them overrated by a game. Underrated Tennessee by a game, had them at 9-3. Alabama right on the money at 9-3. South Carolina, I'll be honest, I was not high on the South Carolina team. I did not think they were going to be a good team. They surprised me. The defense just really, I think that was the difference maker. And also Lenore Sellers, he was better than I expected him to be. I thought he would be decent, but especially late in the season, he was one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. And then Ole Miss I had at 10-2. And you go back to that Kentucky game, if they win that game, they do indeed go 10-2 and they get to the college football playoffs. So that was the killer for the Rebels this season. But overall, I would say my prediction's pretty accurate. Again, within a game on every team except for South Carolina. How did the simulations do? And we're going to be doing these again with our rosters on the old college football game, NCAA Football 14, because of course we're not going to get the new college football game until July, and you can't really edit all the rosters on there. So we're going to use the old game, see how it comes out. It was pretty accurate. Texas at 11-1, Georgia at 11-1, Tennessee 9-3, Alabama right on the money 9-3. It also had South Carolina at 4-8 and had Ole Miss actually at 11-1. So that was actually very close to my prediction. And I do not make my predictions based off of this video game, but it is interesting how that came out. Again, almost exactly the same. Ole Miss was the only difference. But if you go to the new college football game, it was not accurate at all. Texas 8-4, Georgia 7-5, Tennessee 8-4, Alabama 11-1, South Carolina 8-4, Ole Miss 8-4. So if you're looking for a somewhat accurate projection, you're probably going to want to look at our simulations from the old game with our formula that we have for these roster ratings, because the new game just was not accurate at all. And we'll do the new game as well just for the fun of it again this next season, and maybe they're more accurate this year. But yeah, these simulations on College Football 25 were not accurate. Although I will say, as we've gotten into the season, the simulations that I do each week, a lot of them have been pretty accurate, and they've correctly predicted some upsets. So I think they've gotten better with their formula, at least with the ratings, since before the season began. So those are the top 6 teams. Let's go to the next 6 teams. We got Missouri, Texas A&M, LSU, Florida, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. Missouri goes 9-3. Vegas had them at the over/under at 9.5, so they were about where they were expected to be. Texas A&M 8-4. Vegas had their over/under at 8.5, so they were about where they were expected to be. LSU 8-4. Now a bit of a disappointment. Their over/under was actually at 9.5. We had Florida at 7-5. That was very good. With their schedule, that was a really good season. Their over/under was 5.5. And then we had Arkansas 6-6. Their over/under was 5.5, so they were about where they were expected to be. And Vanderbilt going 6-6, a big surprise. Their over/under was only 2.5. So the big surprises so far that we've seen, of course, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Those were the surprises, and we haven't really seen a major disappointment yet with these predictions. So let's go to the projected records. Missouri, I tell you what, Missouri's. I'll show you the prediction in a second. They were the easiest team probably to predict their record in all of college football, because they had 3 tough games. Really didn't see them winning those games, but then the rest of their schedule is easy, so they were very easy to predict. Texas A&M at 8-4. That was the projection for them. That was right on the money. It's the same as Missouri. LSU's was 9-3, so that one was very close. Florida's was 5-7. They beat that by 2 games. Arkansas right on the money at 6-6, and Vanderbilt missed that one by 2 games. So let's go to my predictions now. Missouri, I had it 9-3. That's where they finished. A&M 9-3. LSU 9-3. Only missed Florida by a game. I did have them getting to a bowl game. Arkansas exactly right at 6-6, and then Vanderbilt, I had it 3-9. So they definitely surprised me. Yeah, again, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, I missed pretty badly on those teams. But every other team that I've shown you, again, I've been within, 1 game of every single team. So I would say my predictions did pretty good here in the SEC. Let's see what the simulations did. Missouri at 8-4. Again, this was our roster formula, our ratings formula on the old game. NCAA Football 14. Had A&M at 10-2, LSU at 10-2. I think both of them actually made the playoff in that simulation. Florida just 4-8, Arkansas 6-6, Vanderbilt 4-8. So again, pretty accurate. Maybe not quite as good as those top teams, but still pretty solid. The new College Football 25 though, Missouri 5-7. A&M was correct at 8-4. LSU just 6-6. Florida 5-7. Arkansas 7-5. Vanderbilt 5-7. Maybe not as bad as those first teams, but Missouri at 5-7. That one was definitely way off. Okay, let's go to the final 4 teams now. Oklahoma, they went 6-6. Vegas had them at 7.5. So a disappointing season for them. Auburn just 5-7. Vegas had them at 7.5. Very disappointing season for the Tigers. Kentucky 4-8. Vegas had them at 6.5. So that was a big disappointment. Mississippi State just 2-10. Their over/under was at 4.5. So all of these teams here at the bottom, all of them were pretty big disappointments. We thought we'd see Vanderbilt on this list, but no, we see these other teams, again, all disappointing. Let's go to our projections. Oklahoma's actually projected to go 8-4. Auburn 7-5. Kentucky 7-5. Mississippi State 6-6. So yeah, our projections were pretty accurate, but then when you get to these bottom teams, that's what it missed. It missed these teams that underperformed pretty badly. And again, we missed with Vanderbilt and South Carolina. My predictions, Oklahoma only off by a game. I did miss Auburn pretty badly. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, he just picked him to go 9-3 because he's an Auburn fan. I think I said this before. I've been doing this since, 2015. I've correctly predicted Auburn's record every year but 1, now 2, because we missed this year. So I've been very accurate with this team. I have not overrated them historically, but they just lost a lot of close games, and they were not as good as I expected them to be. Kentucky 7-5. I thought they would be much better. This had been one of the more consistent programs, but I don't know what happened. Mississippi State, I was not high on them at all. I had them at 3-9, so they were about where I expected. I mean, I think I had them beating Toledo, and they wound up losing that game. The simulations: Oklahoma and Auburn at 8-4, Kentucky 6-6, Mississippi State 3-9. Not horrible, but not super accurate either. But how about the new game? Look how bad it missed. Oklahoma had them at 11-1, Auburn 10-2, Kentucky 6-6, and Mississippi State 5-7. So that's what we take away, at least from the simulations. The NCAA Football 14 simulations with the college football revamp mod with our ratings formula actually turned out to be pretty accurate, at least in the SEC. The new college football 25 was not accurate at all. It was terrible. I would say my predictions were pretty solid in the SEC. Definitely don't like looking at this page, though, with Oklahoma, Auburn, and Kentucky. Missed the mark pretty badly on those. Also missed the mark on South Carolina and Vanderbilt. So I'd say 5 teams that were really not what I expect. Well, no, I wouldn't say we missed Oklahoma by. We only missed them by a game. So really, Auburn and Kentucky had them overrated, and then South Carolina and Vanderbilt had them underrated. You know, those were kind of the 4 teams I missed on. And again, our projections were pretty accurate. I did miss on a little bit, like Mississippi State 6-6, and then again South Carolina, Vanderbilt. But overall, I think we did a pretty good job predicting how this season would go. I did have Georgia and Texas in the SEC championship, so that was accurate as well. But yeah, I want to hear from you. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? How were your preseason predictions? And maybe you didn't make preseason predictions. You can just kind of give me your thoughts on my predictions and what surprised you from what I got right and what I got wrong. Of course, give me your feedback, your comments down below. We'll do the Big Ten coming up tomorrow.